Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brandon's Budget Adventures. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different for you all. I'm going to be showing everybody how to drive a 5-speed manual transmission vehicle. So here we have a 2002 Hyundai Elantra equipped with a 5-speed manual transmission, and we're going to learn how to drive it. Now I'm totally self-taught when it comes to driving manual vehicles because I bought this car out of necessity, but I also wanted to choose a car that would be a little bit more fun to drive, and I learned how to drive it pretty much on my own. I bought it from a guy on Facebook Marketplace, picked it up in a parking lot, and at that point it was do or die, sink or swim. Jumped in the car and I had to learn how to drive it home on the spot. So I watched a couple videos like this and I was driving it in a matter of an hour or two. I wouldn't recommend doing that for other first-time drivers though. So yeah, this isn't gonna be like one of those textbook how-to videos with a whole bunch of rules and fancy schmancy stuff. This is just gonna be the basics of what you need to do to learn how to drive one of these manual vehicles as quickly and easily as possible, which is pretty much how I learned. Just get the car home, get the car on the road with as minimal effort as needed. There's two main types of manual transmissions seen in cars. You got your 5 speeds, which usually have first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then reverse, which is a little difficult to get into when the car is started. And you got your 6-speed transmissions, where the reverse is either in the front, like over there, or in the rear, like over there, but they're 6 speeds, so it's like reverse, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 5 speeds are a little bit easier to drive because less gears, less complicated, but they rev higher on the highway, meaning they're not quite as fuel efficient, and they usually accelerate a little slower. 5 speeds tend to be more economical cars, like 6 and 7 and 8 speeds tend to be more sporty vehicles. So to start your manual transmission vehicle, you put your key in the ignition, just like any other car, but you can't just turn it and step on the brake. You step on the clutch. Press the clutch all the way down and turn the key. There we go, we've started the car. Before you let the clutch out, you want to give the gear a little bit of a wiggle to make sure that there's that it's not in gear. Because if you wiggle your gear and it doesn't wiggle side to side, that means you're in gear. And a lot of people will leave the car in gear when they park, especially in these older manual transmission vehicles, because the parking brake will be broken. When you're learning how to drive a manual car, you want a nice, good-fitting pair of shoes that's comfortable. These are a poor choice. I would not recommend wearing blue open-toed slides to drive a manual vehicle. I mean, I do it every day, so that's what I wear for my fishing trips, but if you're new to driving manuals, definitely don't wear anything like this. Wear a nice, well-fitted pair of sneakers, because these could get caught on the pedals pretty easily. So, once you got your vehicle started, well, like I was saying before you start the car, you want to make sure that you are in neutral. So we'll try that again. You step on the clutch, because a lot of times, like I was saying before, the previous owner, whoever was driving it before, is going to leave it in a gear because the parking brakes are worn out on those older cars. And by leaving it in a gear, you're preventing the car from rolling down a hill. Because in a manual car, you don't have park like a regular automatic transmission vehicle. So you step on the clutch, wiggle the gear a little to make sure you are in neutral, and you start the vehicle. Start it up nicely, take down your parking brake once you close the door and buckle up, of course. We're going to do that right now. Close the door. Now that I've got my seatbelt on and the car started, I'm going to put the parking brake down with my right foot on the brake. Left foot is going to press the clutch and put the car in reverse. And take your foot off the brake, look behind you like with a normal vehicle and slowly let out the clutch. You don't even need to touch the gas. You'll feel the car start moving. And you'll feel a kind of rumbling in the steering wheel, and you'll feel a rumbling in the engine. And once you feel that rumbling and you're moving, you can press the gas a little to move faster. Normally you don't want to start by going in reverse. It's a little bit difficult to do that. So I'd highly recommend beginners start on a back road where there's nobody around. Then you're gonna put the car in first, and you should be able to move the car without touching the gas pedal. Slowly letting out the clutch, you'll see it start to go. You can move the car without touching the gas. You see, we're moving now. If you can't get your vehicle to move without touching the gas, you're not ready to drive on a public road yet. See, it might stall, but even I'm not so good at that. See, I got the vehicle moving without touching the gas. That's step one. I would practice that a couple times if I were you. So we're gonna pull over here. I'm gonna put the car in neutral again. Come to a complete stop. And I'll show you how to do it one more time. You put the car in first by pressing down on the clutch, moving the gear into first, and slowly coming off the clutch. It's starting to rumble now. See how the car's starting to slowly, you got that sweet spot. And then you can let it out a little more, and you're moving. You don't need to touch the gas to move. Once you get the hang of getting the car moving without touching the gas, you don't want to touch the gas. That means that you're starting to develop a feel for your car, because every clutch is different. Some clutches are more stiff, while other clutches are easier to press in. And every sweet spot where the clutch bites is different. Sometimes the sweet spot is higher up on the clutch. Sometimes it's really low down and the clutch is super stiff, like in a sports car. This is an older vehicle and it's designed for economy and fuel efficiency. So it's just a commuter car. But the sports cars have more gears and stiffer clutches. They're a little more difficult to drive. So now that we got the vehicle moving, you can give it a little gas. Put the wipers on. And I usually shift when it gets to about 2.5 or 3, sometimes less, because I like to drive for fuel efficiency. But you can let it rev up a little higher. There we go, so we got the car moving. The car will kind of let you know when it wants to shift. You'll see it start to not accelerate as quickly, and that's how you know it's time to shift gears. So we're gonna bring the car to a stop, and let's pretend we're in like a busier intersection where you gotta move. And you'll know where the sweet spot is, because right when you let that clutch out, you'll hit that sweet spot. You see how its steering wheel's starting to shake and the car's starting to rumble? You give it a little gas while letting the clutch out. You don't want to rev too high. If you start doing something like that with the foot on the clutch, you're going to burn your clutch out pretty quick. You want to get off that clutch. Same thing with at a stoplight or if you're on a hill. Don't put your foot on the clutch and ride the clutch. If you're on a hill, what you want to do, well, we're in Southwest Florida, so there's no hills around here. Most of our roads are flat. But if you're on a hill, you pull the parking brake. And you put the clutch in, you get to the sweet spot. And right when you feel it start to rumble, foot on the gas, let out the clutch, and give it a little fuel. You don't want to rev, because that's how you ruin your clutch. Try to get off that clutch with as minimal revving as possible. And try not to leave your foot on the clutch at, say, a stoplight or a hill, because that's how you wear out your clutch, which will cost thousands of dollars to repair. And I normally leave the car in gear while I'm braking until it starts to shake a little, which is like when it comes down to like 500 to 800 RPMs. You don't want to have your car rolling down the road with you not in gear, because then it's harder to come to an emergency stop. let's say you want to slow down. You got to downshift. Foot on the clutch, rev it up, put it in gear. See, I'm gonna leave it in second while I'm coming up to this stop sign now. And when you get to the stop sign, once it gets below 1, put it in neutral. Then you can put it back in first because we're still rolling a little. Give it some gas and you're off. And before you shift gears, you always want to put your clutch in, but make sure you put your clutch out as soon as you're in gear. See, bring it up to about 2.5 or 3, clutch in, shift gear, put the foot on the gas, clutch out. Shift it into 4. And if you want to downshift, put your clutch in, rev on the gas a little, and then put it in a lower gear. This takes a little bit of practice because you don't want to rev it past the red line, which is 6.5 in this car, because that's bad for the vehicle. Like, see, I'm going a little bit slow for 4th right now, so we're going to clutch in, a little bit of gas, 3rd gear. And if you're unsure that you revved high enough to get into that lower gear, let the clutch out real slow, or else the car will violently jerk and buck. And the most important thing is, you don't want to be on public roads until you know how to A, get the car moving without putting your foot on the gas, and B, rev match without any violent jerking or bucking. Until you know how to rev match and until you know how to get that car moving without touching that gas, you should not be driving manual on the street, or at least not on major public roads. Manual vehicles are seen as a thing of the past by a lot of people, but in recent years they've become more popular due to their affordability, fuel efficiency, and fun to drive. You also have a lot more control. Like, let's say I want to slow the car down if I'm coming up to a light. I can downshift real high. See? And the car will engine brake without having to touch the brake. Like, coming up to this stop sign, I'm barely going to have to use any brake. So you save a lot of your brake pads. Manual vehicles are a great choice for someone who really likes to enjoy the drive, wants to be a little bit different than everybody else, and wants to save on repairs and fuel cost. So much fun to drive these cars. I don't think I'll ever switch back to automatic. And the story of how I got my first manual vehicle is actually a pretty practical, boring one. I just simply couldn't afford another vehicle, and I saw this listed on Facebook Marketplace for around $1,200, bargained the guy down to $1,000, picked it up, and I was off. Needed a couple small repairs, and that was about it. So that's how to drive a manual vehicle, the very, very basics of it. Hopefully soon I'll drop some more videos about stuff like heel to toe shifting and rev matching. But for now, the basics of just getting your car moving. Start her up with your foot on the clutch, put down the parking brake, press the clutch, put the gear in first, come off the clutch and give it a little gas once it reaches that sweet spot. I actually over revved a little. You don't want to rev too much each time because you'll wear out your car. You want to feel it hit that sweet spot, and it doesn't want to go. I'm not used to the water because I know this car really well. I know the exact amount of gas I got to use to get it moving. Get your vehicle moving. Start accelerating a little. And whenever you feel comfortable putting it in second gear, you don't want to rev it too high because you just burn gas at that point. foot on the clutch, foot off the gas, because if you keep it on the gas, it'll rev too high, and you're in second gear. And you can keep it in second gear. You don't need to pull it out of gear until it comes below 1 and starts shaking. You'll feel when it wants to come out of gear. Foot on the clutch, pull it out of gear. See, here's a little bit of a hill. Pretending this was a steeper hill, like I was saying before, you pull up on your parking brake and you start accelerating, and when you feel the car start to move, you come off the brake just like that. It takes a little bit of practice. So it's best not to do this on major public roads. See, I'm gonna keep it in first because I'm about to turn into my house right here. It'll slow down, like I don't even need any brake. It'll slow down for me, and then I make my turn. There's no need to use any brake if you're in a low gear. The vehicle will pretty much slow down on its own. And then to stop, foot on the brake and clutch at the same time. And you could either leave it in gear if you don't want to roll backwards, or you can pull it out of gear and put your emergency brake up. If you leave it in gear, or if you're one of those people who have a tendency to do that when you stop, make sure to jiggle it a few times before you start it, because a beginner mistake is to start it, pull that clutch out, and you'll go flying. So next time you're thinking of buying a new car, try one of these older stick shift vehicles, because you might just save a lot of money and you'll definitely have a lot of fun.